It is week 10, which means it is absolutely crunch time in order for you to make the fantasy playoffs. We have starts and sits at every single position in this video. Please feel free to get your start sit questions down in the comments below, and I will answer every single one to help you on your journey to dominating your fantasy league in 2024. Let's get into it with the quarterbacks. Our first quarterback for you to start in week 10 is having a bit of a strange season, Sam Darnold. Now, through the first 4 weeks, he only had one finish outside the top 12 at the quarterback position. There were talks about him in the MVP race as the Vikings went undefeated. But as per that Vikings team a few years ago that got bounced in the first round of the playoffs by the Giants, it didn't feel like it was completely sustainable. And then in the last 4 weeks, he's only had one finish inside the top 12 at the quarterback position, including finishes in the mid-20s. So it's been a bit of a strange season for Sam Darnold. I've spoken about him quite a lot on this channel about how I didn't think it was going to be sustainable in the long term and that ultimately the Sam Darnold of the past would end up coming back out. And I fear that might be what's happening a little bit. But he's definitely playing to a good enough level, and this is a smash matchup for him. He is playing against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are the worst defense in the NFL in terms of fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position. The Jags are really struggling. Everyone has been able to pass on them. It's something that no one has struggled against, and Sam Darnold is obviously coming in here with all of his weapons healthy. So Justin Jefferson fully healthy, Jordan Addison fully healthy, and TJ Hawkinson off another week from being off IR. So I think this is an absolute smash matchup for him. They have one of the highest implied point totals on the week. The only thing that could be worrying is against a Mac Jones-led Jacksonville offense if they just put up too many points too early and then Sam Darnold doesn't have to play for the rest of the game, or they can just run the ball for the rest of the game. But I think they will score early and often in this one, and I think it means that Sam Darnold is going to be someone that you can absolutely plug and play this week in week 10. My sit at the quarterback position is actually on the contrary to Sam Darnold, who has featured in start sits videos before as a sit. Drake Maye normally as a start. It's the other way around this week. Drake Maye obviously started very hot, and especially for fantasy, showing a lot of that rushing upside that we've seen before. And the Patriots offense has come into its own, but he's started to struggle and show a few of those rookie mistakes. This position isn't one where I hugely like the ability to start Drake Maye. He's playing against Chicago, at Chicago as well, which I do think makes a difference with the weather conditions that you're likely to see there. They are allowing the least fantasy points to the quarterback position. They're also bottom 3 in terms of fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position. So even though he has had a relatively hot start, I'd be worried about him here. You can even look back and see that last week when the Bears offense really struggled and the Cardinals offense put up quite a significant amount of points, over 20. The majority of it was in the rushing game. Kyler Murray finished with just over 6 fantasy points, despite them winning by around 20 points in that matchup. So I think you can run the ball on the Bears better than you can throw it. And Drake Maye coming up against quite a brutal defense as a rookie who started to kind of show some of those rookie struggles that we thought, that every rookie quarterback can show throughout their rookie season. I think this is probably a spot where if you can go elsewhere, I would be looking to do so. If you are enjoying this video, and I really hope that you are, please consider liking and subscribing. We've broken through 200 subscribers, which is amazing. We do start sit videos every single week. I respond to every single comment that I get. There's so much more to come from this channel. We are still very much a baby. We've just been talking about rookies. I'm still very much a rookie, so there's rookie mistakes, but there's a glimpse of promise that can come through. So if you are enjoying, please come with me on this journey just by clicking that one little button down below to subscribe and stay with me on the channel. But let's move on to my start at the running back position, which is also someone that I've spoken about before on this channel. DeAndre Swift is my start of the week, and it's in the same matchup as the one I just spoken about going against the New England Patriots. I recently did an article for DLF Dynasty League Football about 4 players that you can buy in Dynasty Leagues for a second round pick who can win your league. And one of them that I featured was DeAndre Swift. Now, I've actually really not been a fan of him. I really wasn't in the offseason. I didn't really understand the contract. I thought Khalil Herbert and Roshan Johnson were a nice 1-2 punch anyway. And DeAndre Swift didn't start off the season very hot. His 17-game pace across the first 3 weeks would have been the RB38 in 2023. Then he's absolutely gone insane. So his 17-game pace from the next 5 weeks would have seen him finish last year as the running back 2. That's just behind Christian McCaffrey and well ahead of the backs like Kyren Williams, Travis Etienne, Raheem Mostert, like all of those backs that exploded last year, Breece Hall. DeAndre Swift would have been on pace to finish ahead of any of them. He is absolutely elite for 2024. And that's why I think in Dynasty Leagues you should be going to buy him. But this week, especially against the New England Patriots, I think the Bears are going to put up points early and often. The Patriots are one of the worst teams in terms of fantasy points allowed to the running back position. But crucially, they are allowing the second highest amount of yards to the running back position on the ground. So definitely with Khalil Herbert being moved to Cincinnati, it's just the two of them now. This is DeAndre Swift's backfield. Roshan Johnson does take up a little bit of the goal line work, but I expect DeAndre Swift to definitely break a couple of big runs. If you can find a prop in terms of longest rush, anywhere around sort of 15.5, 16.5 yards, I'd be smashing the over on that. I definitely think this is a DeAndre Swift week, and it probably is the rest of the season. The schedule is actually looking really good, so I think you can probably look to start him quite consistently from here on in. That RB2 2023 pace is absolutely tantalizing for someone that you got probably around the 5th or 6th round in drafts this year. My sit of the week for week 10 at the running back position is the current PPR RB20, Tony Pollard. And I actually don't think that RB20 position really does justice for how Tony Pollard's been playing in 2024. He's playing behind one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. He's playing in one of the worst offenses in the NFL, and he's still getting it done. He's still had multiple finishes inside the top 12, despite scoring very few touchdowns and having very few opportunities to score touchdowns. He does get a significant amount of volume, obviously, especially with Tyjae Spears now injured and Julius Chestnut, I don't think, being a real player. He did very well against the New England Patriots last week, finishing as the RB12, but I don't think this week against the LA Chargers is going to be the same for him. You will have some safe volume, but the LA Chargers are allowing the second fewest points per game to the running back position. They are a very difficult team to run the ball on. That is basically how Jim Harbaugh and Jesse Minter have set up their team, which is run the ball well on offense, stop the run on defense, and then we can play from there. The Titans also have the lowest implied points total across the entire slate for week 10. And obviously, as we know, you want if you have a higher points total, you probably want running backs because you're going to run up the score early and then try and run out the clock. A lower points total, you probably want wide receivers because you're going to want to throw the ball to come back from a deficit. I think the Titans offense is going to really struggle in this one, whether it's Mason Rudolph or Will Levis, and it just makes me not really feel confident starting Tony Pollard going into week 10. My start of the week, George Pickens at the wide receiver position, is someone people were really excited about coming into this season, purely due to the fact that the two quarterbacks that he had coming in, Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, good deep balls, Russell Wilson especially, matched up well with George Pickens, and that depth chart with Deontay Johnson being traded away was wide open, so you'd assume he'd get a significant amount of target volume. It's not really been the season that we've wanted for George Pickens. He's only had one finish inside the top 20, which was a couple of weeks ago against the Jets, where he finished as the wide receiver 4. Things have really turned around for Pickens, though, since Russell Wilson got the starting job. That moon ball and its fit with George Pickens' ability to win contested catches at the boundary is absolutely perfect. The two of them have such great chemistry, which is quite reminiscent of, in recent years, what we've seen with Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett. He's actually averaging 16.8 points per game since Russell Wilson has been starting. Now, that is only 2 games, so it's a tiny sample size, but the signs are really pointing in a positive direction. And all the two of them need is one big connection for him to return for fantasy football. With the wide open depth chart, the Steelers did just trade for Mike Williams, so there's a hope that just having another body on the team that we know can reliably catch the ball might draw some of the double coverage away from George Pickens that he's been seeing across the course of this season. One thing that's exciting about this matchup, the Commanders' defense has actually really turned it around in the last few weeks, and they're definitely performing better against wide receivers than at the beginning of the year when it was just a smash matchup. We knew it was going to be a high over-under no matter who they were playing. George Pickens is in the top 12 against man coverage across all wide receivers in the NFL. This is something that Washington runs at the 8th highest rate. So if he's left one-on-one on the boundary against the Commanders' corners, who aren't the best of players, they aren't grading incredibly. Pickens just has that ability to win one-on-one in contested catch situations. Russell Wilson is going to put the ball on him with that incredible moon ball that we've seen throughout the last, 10, 15 years of Russell Wilson. And I think they're also probably going to be playing from behind against a good Commanders offense. I'm very intrigued to see the matchup between the Commanders offense and the Steelers defense, though. It's going to be the hardest defense that Jaden Daniels has come up against. But George Pickens in this matchup, I think there's going to be a lot of volume. I think there's going to be a lot of chances for him to win one-on-one. And I think he's really going to return value in week 10. My sit of the week at the wide receiver position is Xavier Worthy. Now, I've used a picture of him doing something that last week he didn't seem to be able to do, which is catching the ball. But if you do look at the photo, there might be a chance that this is about to spill out of his hands. This comes down to the matchup and also then target volume. In the last game with DeAndre Hopkins, where he obviously went off against the Bucks, he finishes a wide receiver 111 with 2 drops, and the only fancy points he got was from carrying the ball once. His finishes since week 1. Week 1, he did really well. He ran for a touchdown and caught a touchdown, but his weekly finishes, you can see on screen, 1 inside the top 12, only 1 more inside the top 30, and a significant amount outside the top 50. He is barely startable at this point. He's just not really found his role within this offense. I did a big deep dive earlier in the season to see who I thought could replace Rashee Rice. And I was right for 1 week with Juju Smith-Schuster, and then he got injured. Xavier Worthy just has a different skill set. He is not physical enough to win over the middle of the field. He's getting boxed out by opposing cornerbacks, and that's something that could definitely happen here. The Broncos are the 6th best team against the wide receiver positions. That would be even higher if you sort of eliminate the complete behemoth that is the Ravens offense, which came to town last week, and Zay Flowers completely dominated. I think if he finds any time matched up against Pat Surtain, he's going to really struggle. He is way too physical for him. But even so, I don't think Xavier Worthy is a consistently reliable week-to-week starter at this point. In fact, I think he might even be droppable down the stretch. DeAndre Hopkins and Travis Kelce are the alphas in this offense, and Xavier Worthy just hasn't shown it just yet. There is hope for the future in a more specialized role, but it is not working in 2024. Now, when Chris Godwin got hurt a few weeks ago, people's immediate thought was which wide receiver is going to replace him. And there was a lot of budget spent on Jalen McMillan, on Sterling Shepard, on Trey Palmer. When it turned out the entire answer was just Cade Otton. In the last 3 weeks, he has been a top 5 tight end every single week. He is seeing a significant amount of target volume, and he's being used incredibly creatively. I've not really liked Cade Otton that much in his time in the league. I thought he's just sort of a big body over the middle of the field, sometimes in the red zone, that's just going to catch passes and go down in the sort of Zach Ertz mold or someone like Pat Freiermuth. But actually, he's being used so creatively as a power slot by Liam Cohen that he is seamlessly replacing Chris Godwin, who was on course for an absolutely unbelievable season in both fantasy and NFL terms. One of the reasons that I put him here as my start of the week is not just to say, it's the highest over-under of the slate. There's going to be a lot of points. He's a good red zone weapon. You should start Cade Otton. But as you'll have seen in the title of this episode, I think Cade Otton has a chance to be the tight end 1 down the stretch. I think no one else is going to see as many targets as he is. No one else is as featured in their office aside from maybe Travis Kelce. We see this all the time. Last year, David Njoku. A few seasons ago, Tyler Higbee was a league winner down the stretch. We see these tight ends suddenly get a huge amount of volume volume and win the league off the waiver wire. And I think Cade Otton should be that this year. So that's my flag plant. So yeah, I would recommend starting him this week and beyond. From one tight end who has seamlessly replaced the injured receivers in his offense to one who we thought might be able to, that just hasn't put it together. Dalton Schultz is playing the Detroit Lions this week. They are one of the most brutal teams against the tight ends. I always start out by looking at over-unders and looking at fantasy points allowed at the position. That led me to take a little bit of a deeper dive into Dalton Schultz, who I thought, actually, I haven't seen too much about him. Nico Collins is injured. Diggs is out for the season. How has he been doing? In his entire season, he has only had one game over 50 receiving yards. He has had no games inside the top 12 tight ends, which is insane given how rubbish tight end was for the first half of the season. If you are considering at all, okay, they're going to have to pass against the Lions because the Lions are going to score a boatload of points. There's no Nico Collins. There's no Stephon Diggs. Maybe Dalton Schultz could be someone I could pick up. Don't. It is not happening for Schultz in 2024. So that is going to do it for today's video. Those are my starts and sits at all of the four main positions. If you have enjoyed, please consider liking and subscribing. Please drop a comment down below if you have any start sit questions you want to ask me, or you can drop me a message on Twitter at ff_pancake. Have a great time in week 10, and we will see you next time.